Hi, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in learning right angle weave for these cute Tannenbaum earrings. You can also make this a little bit larger as a pendant if you want, as well as so many other designs once you learn the technique. Gather up some seed beads and crystals and let's get started. We're going to begin our tree with some right angle weave. So you can see here it's almost a crisscross section of 4 blocks and 4 blocks, and then we're adding some blocks in the middle here. I have a stop bead on some green wildfire beading thread, 0.006, and I have a size 10 needle on. You can use an 11 or a 12. The 10 sometimes will get a little bit tight depending on what brand you're using and if they're perma-finish or not. I'm going to be making each right angle weave block to have 3 beads per side for a total of 3, 6, 9, 12 beads. So to start out, I have my stop bead on the end of my thread, and I'm going to add 3 and then 6 for my second side. 3 more gets 9 for my third side, and then 3 more for 12 for my final side. I'm going to let that drop down next to that stop bead and sew back through the first 9 beads. So I'm sewing back through the first 3 sides. The color that I'm using is the silver lined green, and then I'm going to do my little red berry lights with silver lined ruby. Coming out of my box here, I have my stop bead here at the end, and I'm going to continue to build 3 more boxes off the side here. I already have 3 beads that I'm going to use from this previous box to be my new left side of my next box. I'm going to add 3 for the bottom, 3 more beads for the right, and 3 more beads for the top. Go ahead and come down those last 3 beads, so beads 6 through 9 there, along the side to make your second box. From here, I'm going to sew back through 6 beads. The 3 beads on the bottom and the 3 beads on the right-hand side. The 3 beads on the right-hand side that my thread is currently coming out of, that is going to be my next box, my 3 sides on the left now. 3 more beads get added for the top, 3 for the new right, 3 for the bottom, and then back up through the 3 that my thread is currently coming out of. That creates my next box. I'm going to flip this in my hand just so it's easier to hold, sewing down through the next 3 beads, which was my top here. I'll flip it back so that way you can tell. 3 beads there at the top, and then coming down the 3 beads on the right. I always want to exit that right as I start to build onto my right angle weave. I'm going to create my last box in my series here. 3 more for the bottom, 3 for the right, 3 for the top. Back down through the 3 that are on the left-hand side of the box, which used to be the right-hand side of the box before it. From here, go ahead and sew through the next 3 beads. Now normally I would sew through the next 6 beads, the 3 to the bottom and the 3 to the right. But from here, we're actually going to build onto the form here. You can look at it right across the tree here and think about this being basically the bottom or the middle section of the tree. We're going to build 2 more blocks right there on top. So coming out these 2 beads here, or the 3 beads rather, I'm going to add 3 more beads for my new right side, 3 more beads for my new top, and 3 more beads for a left-hand side. These 3 beads that I'm coming out of are going to be the bottom of my next box. I'm going to sew back into those 3 beads, rounding out the design. I'm going to sew up through the 3 beads on the right, through the 3 beads at the top, through the 3 beads on the left, because I always want to be able to expand onto this. And now when I look at this right angle weave, I already have the 3 beads there for the bottom of my next box. So I'm going to sew through those 3 beads and exit. This time now I only need to add 6 beads total. I already have 3 beads here for my right. I have 3 beads for my bottom. 3 beads go on for the left, and 3 beads go on for the top. I'm going to come back down these left-hand beads here, and that finishes out my next right angle weave unit. So at this point here, I have basically the ones going from the bottom left of the tree up to kind of the top right and that middle section. I'm not going to worry about that final X box here. I'm going to come up and do that as we circle around. So usually you're going to go around that and add the next one on. What we're going to do is circle around back to that first box there in order to bring the needle and thread to the top. So my thread's coming out through the middle of those two boxes that we just added. I'm going to sew through the bottom of the box on the right, through those 3 beads there. Then I'm going to sew up through the 3 beads on the right-hand side of the box and come on out. Now, normally right angle weave, I would add another box, but it's going to be off to the side. I want it to be the point of the tree. I'm going to add a whole nother 12 sections of beads, or 12 groups of beads rather. So I have 12 beads in groups of 3. I have 9 and 3 more. And I'm going to bring my thread and needle back down through this next set of beads here on the left-hand side, or the top rather, of that box. That's going to put that right angle unit basically just kind of hanging out at the top and waiting. Just waiting to be completed. From here, because we're going to end up sewing through the middle, we want to work down along the project. So right now, if you look at it here, we have the top of the tree, we have our middle section, and now we need to go down and work toward the bottom section. To do so, I'm going to do what you don't usually like to do with right angle weave for simplicity's sake, and we are going to sew down through the project on an angle. So I have the tree there on the top section. I'm coming out of the 3 beads right below it, and you're going to sew on an angle through the left-hand side of the rightmost boxes and out. So our next step, what we're going to do is we're going to add another right angle unit, actually 2 more here at this section. I want to sew through the 3 beads here that act as what's going to become the right-hand side of the previous box. Turn it over to the side, and we're going to add 1, 2, 3 more for the base, 1, 2, 3 more for the right, 1, 2, 3 more for the top, and sew through that right side, which is now going to become the left of this box. Go ahead just like we did when we added the original right angle weave, and we're going to continue on sewing through the bottom of that box and coming out again through the right hand side. From here, 1, 2, 3 beads go on for the top, 1, 2, 3 beads go on for the right, and then I need 3 beads for my bottom. So back up through those 3 beads that your thread are currently coming out of and finish up that side of the tree. From here, we're just missing 1 box in the interior. So I'm going to take my thread and needle, sew through the top of that box. We're going to sew down through the bottom of the box, up through the other side of the box here towards that center. And again, because we're going to be covering it, we're going to sew straight through to that 3rd box there. Coming out that 3rd box there, we want to make 1 more box. So I'm going to come down through the 3 beads from the box right next door. So I'm kind of right there in that middle section. I'm coming up through those 3 beads and down through the next 3. Once I do that, I have 2 more sides to add to this box, because here's my first 2 sides. I'm going to add my bottom of my box and my right-hand side of my box. So back through the top of that box there. And that closes off your Christmas tree design. Now what we're going to do is we're going to embellish, make this sit in that nice right angle weave section, and add in some red 11-0 seed beads, as well as some 4mm emerald AB. We're going to use just a hint of 3mm bicones in the metallic bronze for our trunk of our tree, as well as our little top where we're going to put on our wire guard. Now that we have all of our right angle weave squares done here, what we're going to do is use our 4mm crystals to add in between our little blocks. Now if you want to, you could change this up to some red if you want a little bit more, or even do kind of a festival of lights and do different colors. So what I'm going to do is get down to the bottom of my piece here. I'm just sewing along the right angle weave. And I'm going to put these beads on here in an angle. So I'm getting down right basically next to my stop bead. Right there. And I'm going to sew down to the corner here and over into my first 3 beads that I originally put on. From here, add a 4mm bicone, and if you know right angle weave pretty well and embellish right angle weave, you can start this wherever. I'm just going to start it in this corner. I'm adding my 4mm bead on, and I'm coming out of, remember those first original, I'm coming out of the right side of that box. I'm going to come out the bottom left of the box, and I'm going to go into the top right of the next box. Coming out again, the bottom left of this box, I'm going to add one of my 4mm beads, and I'm going down then into the top right hand side of the box through all 3 of those beads. That's going to let our bicone sit on an angle and fit perfectly in our box. Continuing this on, add another bead, again into the top right, because you're coming out the bottom left. One more on the side here, into those first 3 beads on the right hand side, and there you have it. Now it's up to you which direction you want to go in to add your next of your embellishment. While I'm doing this, I'm going to start adding my red seed beads for my little lights. And I have my beads here, again just 11-0 seed beads. And basically every space that you have between your right angle weave units, as well as on the corners, we're going to add one of our red beads. So I'm going to add a red bead and sew down into the bottom of that right angle weave unit. Add a red bead, sew down to the next end. Add a red bead, sew down along the bottom of that line. Add a red bead. And now what I'm going to do is sew through the next 3 beads in that same box that my thread is coming out of. That's going to get me ready and set up here to do my next my next addition of my crystals. Coming out the bottom left, I'm going to go into that top right. Now if you want to, you can do all of the red beads first, you can do all of the bicones first, that's up to you. The way that I'm doing it, that I'm adding the red beads in some of the rows, is just to eliminate some of the need for thread passes. Coming out that bottom left, sneak underneath that red bead that you just added, and go through the top right and down. Just like I did on the previous row, go ahead and add your red seed bead here. So down there into the bottom of that right angle box to add your little light on. Add your 1 11-0 seed bead, and then sew down the 3 beads at the bottom of that next box. Add in your 4mm bead here, down through the next corner. Oops, I'm coming out the bottom left, and I'm going into the top right. Make sure you're sewing down those 3 beads. And when you get to the corner, add in an 11-0 seed bead. Sew through the next 3 beads. Get to the point there. And this is up to you. If you don't want to add the red beads at the bottom, you don't have to. For it to look like there's not lights hanging on the bottom, I am adding my red beads along the bottom. I'm going to add my red bead there along the bottom. And then I want to get back pretty much up to the next section here. And I'm going to sew through my next green beads. And put that green bead right there on the side. I'm going to sneak underneath, go to the next section, have my red bead. And it doesn't matter really the way that the red beads will sit. You're not going to see it a ton. While I'm down here at this red bead, I'm going to go ahead and add my tree trunk before I go up to the top. To add the tree trunk, go ahead and grab 4 of your 2mm bicones. Coming out that red bead there, I'm going to add all 4 bicones. Circle back through that red bead. So your thread's coming out of the red bead, you add the 4 bicones, circle back through that red bead, push it up towards your tree here, making sure that it sits nice and tight against the project. And then just to make it look a little bit more boxy, I want you to sew down through the first 2mm crystal, and then you're going to go through that crystal loop basically. And you're going to sew up through bead number 4. So you come out of 1, skip over beads 2 and 3, and sew through bead 4. What that's going to do is make it sit just a little bit more in that rectangular shape rather than a rounded shape. Back through the red bead. And then once you're out the red bead, again, I'm just going to tighten up a tiny bit, pushing the red bead right up to that space in the tree trunk. Tighten my thread. Then take my thread and needle through the next 3 green beads along the end. So there you can see the tree trunk is on there. Now this again really just is embellished right angle weave. So if you need a little help with the right angle weave, go ahead and check out some other videos as well. I'm going to go up now and go through my next red seed bead that's already there. I'm going to go down through my 3 beads that sit at the base of the first square that I did. Add a red bead in, back up towards the stop bead, move that stop bead just behind, add another red bead in, and now I'm going to sew up through the line here. So just like we did previously, I'm going to add 1 red bead between each one of my sections of right angle weave. That'll bring me up to the top, and then I'm going to get ready to go on to this upper right hand box. So once you add your last red bead in the row, I'm coming up through the right 3 beads on the top 2 kind of left side of my tree. I'm going to add my green beads here, and this time I'm doing the opposite. So I'm coming out the top right, I'm going to go into the bottom left and sew through those 3 beads there. Once I sew through those 3 beads, then that green one gets added there. And now I have 1 more green to add. Starting out the top right, I'm going to sew through the bottom left. And when I sew through the bottom left, I'm going to come up through those 3 beads there towards the outer edge. When I'm out the outer edge, pick up 1 of your red beads. I'm going to try to keep this nice and in my tree form so you can see it. And this is going to create my next corner. So my next corner here, let me move that stop thread out of the way. My next corner, I'm going to add my 3 beads, sew up through my 3 beads, and out. So basically just as we did prior to adding those green beads on this left-hand side of the tree, we're doing the same thing. We're going to sew straight up using our red beads to connect our blocks here. Straight up again. Now, when I'm coming out of this one, this middle one here, I'm going to go through my right 3 beads. Remember, this top section of the tree is going to sit a little different than a regular right angle weave because I want it coming out in the center top. So here I'm going to take my next 4mm bead coming out the right there. I'm going to go into, skip 3 beads, and I'm going to go into basically the opposite side. So I'm coming out those 3 beads right. I'm going to skip the 3 beads, and then I'm going to come out and go through bead number 9, 8, and 7, and out. That'll get that crystal right in there and start to sit like a right angle weave unit. To top it off, I'm going to use 1 of my 11-0 seed beads So back through beads number 6, 5, 4, add another 11, sew 3 beads 1, 2, and 3. Add and go through that 11 that's already there. Go up through your next 3 beads. So we're basically circling around this whole diamond kind of unit. And when you come out through the last 3, you're going to add 1 more red bead on. That's going to bring us then, as we add this final red bead in place, brings me to the top red bead. Now if you want to, you can add a little star to the top or a little gold bead. All I'm going to add to the top of my tree is I'm going to add a gold wire guard. So the gold wire guard is going to look like my little star on top of the tree. Here on my sample piece, I did 1 11-0 gold and then 1 more of my crystals. I'm going to keep it really simple on this one. Go ahead up through your wire guard, through one side, down through the other side. And when I do this, I'm also going to pinch it just a tiny little bit together. And I'm using my hands to do this because I don't want to use too much pressure on it. I'm just pinching it so those ends almost touch. Make sure that the wire stays in the wire guard. And whatever side you're coming out of your 11-0 seed bead, you're going to go into the opposite side. And I'm going to go through my wire guard 1 more time, reinforcing it. Once I'm down through the other side of the wire guard, I'm going to go back through that same 11-0 seed bead at the top of the tree. You'll notice I'm on the back of the tree here. The crystals will sit a little bit toward the front of the tree. There I have my tree all finished, ready to go. And all I need to do is get this starter thread down to the ending thread here down to the starter thread. Once I get that down to the starter thread, I'm going to go down here on the angle, down to here, weave over a little bit, over to the side, and then just burn the thread end off right along the bottom. Once that's done, you're just going to put it right on your ear wire, and your Tannenbaum earrings will be completed. Thanks so much for joining me in the Tannenbaum earring tutorial. Remember, if you want to, comment below, make any suggestions, any changes, and let us know what you're going to be doing and what style, whether or not you're going to be doing the full-on triangle or doing the tree to go along with it. Remember, if you do need any materials, you can always check us out at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I noticed that a lot of you actually watch, but don't subscribe. You don't want to miss anything from us here at Potomac Beads, so make sure to click that button. As always, thank you so much for watching and enjoy your Tannenbaum earrings and happy holidays.